All right, good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for joining us in another segment of the Jain Irrigation Training Series. Today, we're going to be talking about weather-based irrigation controllers. What's a smart controller? What's a smarter controller? And more importantly, who's got or what is the smartest controller? Now, why this matters, I think, and why it's such an interesting subject to me is that there's a lot of controllers out there that are considered smart, maybe get the classification of smart. And what I really want to know, or what I hope to get out of this and learn, is if I invest a little bit more money and get the smartest controller, does it actually pay me back in more water savings or better water savings, or how does that affect me? So I'm really excited to kind of open up this subject from that standpoint, and helping us out today to really examine this is DJ Caldwell. And I've worked now with DJ for the last 2 years, but I've known about DJ for a long time. And one of the things I really admire about DJ over the last couple of years and working with him is his experience in the contracting business. You know, he worked for a contractor, Environmental Designs Inc. in Colorado, and he sold and he installed and he managed smart controllers there. So somebody who's actually done it and had that experience, you know, I find that you can learn a lot from, and DJ's been no exception. I've really learned a lot about smart controllers from him as a result of that. But DJ also worked in the distribution business as well. So he's got a nice rounded experience here, working for a contractor, working for CPS distributors in Colorado. Hi, Lowell, I know you're tuning in today. And then working for ET Water starting in 2016. So DJ really covers the mountain states for us: Colorado, Wyoming, Colorado and Utah and Wyoming, his main primaries. And we're really excited to have him on here today. And DJ, I just wanted to start off with, you know, how are the contractors doing with smart controllers, especially in that Colorado market where sustainability and water conservation is so important?
Thanks, Richard, for having me, and thanks for the kind words. You know, out here, you know, most people don't think of Colorado as a really water conservation, you know, kind of hotbed, if you will. So a lot of the contractors, they've really bought into the water conservation and smart controllers, really trying to help a lot of their customers, you know, not only save water, but also, you know, save money on their water bills as the water rates continue to go up. So we've actually seen a lot of really good buy-in from, you know, definitely some really good contractors out here.
Yeah, that's great to hear. You know, it was back in my contracting days, one thing I noticed is we sold the same amount of irrigation upgrades in Denver as we did in Los Angeles. And people always wanted to know why that was. And I thought, well, number one, people understand water conservation better in Colorado. You know, it seems to be really important to them. And then number two, because it was just a 6-month season, people had to get busy with it. There actually had to be a focus versus, hey, you know, we'll work on it next month because it's going to be sunny and nice next month too. So anyway, thanks for that input on that. So, so what do you have for us today, DJ?
Yeah, so really, as you said, Richard, we're going to kind of dive into, you know, as I like to look at it, the 3 categories of the actual smart controllers, or weather-based controllers, if you will. And really just kind of try to get a better understanding of the different levels, you know, maybe where they fit, where they don't fit, and, you know, what features each of them have that really separate them from the category before, and really kind of try to just inform everybody of what we have to work with out in the market right now. So really, one of the first things we want to look at or talk about really when we're talking about smart controllers is water management. Water management is a very important factor when we're looking at smart controllers or water conservation as a whole. Couple different reasons why. You know, as I mentioned, water rates continue to go up. When water rates go up, that means, you know, we need to conserve more. Our HOAs, our property managers, you know, their budgets can't just continue to take these increasing water bills. So really, for that fact, it really does make it one of the largest issues that we're facing as an industry. Not only our contractors, but our customers as well. You know, they're really struggling with this. The other part with water management it's a great way for a lot of contractors to really separate themselves from their competition. If they're able to save an HOA a bunch of water and money, one, they're not only just going to keep the contract, but hopefully they're going to be able to market that and really use their experience to go out and find new business as well.
Yeah, DJ, I went to work for Valley Crest, right? The contractor I worked for back in 2009. And if you can remember, that was something coined now, the Great Recession. Well, I started with 18 business developers selling landscape maintenance, and we grew that to 28 business developers. And really, we would go into bidding situations, and we would start talking about water management and what we could do with water management. And now nobody cared if we were a little bit more expensive or a bit more expensive on our monthly maintenance. What we showed them we could save them in water would take care of that. And boy, this is what caused us to grow dramatically in that 3-year time period from 2009 to 2012, where other people were literally closing their businesses. We were getting business at that time, really focused on the water management. So I totally see this. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, no, a lot of our contractors out here, that's the direction that they have gone with, and it's really worked out well for them. And I think it's a good recipe for success.
Yeah.
So next, here is the most recent drought monitor map that was released. As you can see, pretty much the entire Western U.S. is in some form of drought right now. Really, if you look at Colorado, where I'm located, there's not really an inch of the state that's not in some form of drought right now. I really thought this was important to bring up just for a couple basic reasons. One, once we can start going into drought, and the more severe it gets, the more water restrictions the municipalities are going to put on contractors and properties, whether it's the number of days they can run or the how much water they can use. Maybe they'll knock it down to 17 gallons per square foot, which could send some landscapes into stress. So really, it's in Colorado, it's not if the next drought happens, it's really when it's going to happen. And so I think a lot of our contractors out here have done really good at preparing for the next drought by starting to save when we don't actually necessarily have to, if you will.
Yeah, I've been saying it for a while now, and I know my Colorado Rockies fans will like this saying, right? And it is, the new normal is we're either going into a drought or coming out of a drought. We're just always going to be in a drought, and right. So that's a play on the hitting term. You're always either going into a slump or coming out of a slump. But I feel the same way about this drought situation now. It's just the new normal. We're going to have to, as an industry, learn how to deal with it. So glad to see you're bringing that to everybody's attention today.
Absolutely. So next, I think this is going to be a repeat. I'm sure many people have heard this multiple times, but it is something that's very important. When you start looking at household water usage, on average across the U.S., they say 60% of the water that is used in every household is actually used on the outdoors. Where that becomes important is because 50% of that water that's used on your landscape is actually being wasted. A lot of times due to runoff, overspray, potentially broken items out in your sprinkler system. So rolling back to being in a drought, we really have to save everything that we can because of the available water. And water is such a valuable resource that we really need to maintain how we're using it. So, just having an idea of what every house is potentially wasting and what could be saved if a lot of those issues were remedied, really could make a huge impact on the industry.
Yeah, and I just think, DJ, this overwatering creates a lot of other challenges, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you start getting shallow root depths. Your trees and shrubs. They can start blowing over in the wind because they don't have a good root depth. Root rot. You get all these different side effects from overwatering that end up costing more money in the long run a lot of times.
Yeah. So the waste really just compounds itself. Yeah. It's really unfortunate.
So, and really, if we're talking about smart controllers, we really kind of need to have at least a basic understanding of what ET or evapotranspiration is. A lot of times when I'm talking to a lot of my customers or end users of the controllers, I put it very simply that ET is basically what the plant uses and what water is wasted. So what the plant uses is the transpiration, and then what is wasted in a sense is through evaporation. Both of those, that's nothing that anybody in our industry has any control over. We can't slow down the plant from using more water when it's 95 degrees. It's using what it needs to survive. And same thing with evaporation. It's going to go away. So, we just need to know where the water is going and how it's being used, so that way we can properly reapply the irrigation to keep our plant material healthy.
Yeah, and a big shout out to Kevin Heverin. I love this illustration with the roots coming out of the bottom of the world there. That is great. So yeah, I've seen a lot of illustrations that showed ET, but this has got to be one of my favorite ones.
It's really good. He did a good job on it, that's for sure. So, and then when we're talking about ET, we have to really start looking at the ET graphs, or the bell curves as it's most commonly referred to. This is a normal ET graph. So, you start your year off fairly low. As you go into the summer, the temperatures get hotter. Plants are using more. It's gonna increase, and then kind of in the fall, it's gonna start decreasing as well. One important thing to know is not every year is going to look exactly like this graph. This is based off of current weather. So if you look at 2017, 18, and 19, if you compare the graphs, you're going to see some differences. Maybe April is going to be hotter in 17 than it was in 18, but it generally will fall for the most part. This bell curve kind of give you a really good idea of, kind of how you should be watering throughout the year.
So DJ, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, this is basically the air temperature. It goes up through July and then it comes back down in the fall. So wouldn't I just get good water management if I connected some temperature device to my controller that would turn it down as we went on? Wouldn't that really help?
It would potentially help. You're not actually going to be able to stay exactly with the curve, because there's a lot more that goes into it. You start looking at length of day, sun exposure, solar radiation, all these different factors that actually go into the ET calculation. So temperature is just one of them. And if you look at ET water, we actually calculate 17 factors. So if you're looking at 1 versus 17, there could be a huge variance in what you're actually needing to run.
Yeah. That's interesting, right? I'm thinking about it. In Southern California, we tend to have some of our hottest months in September and October, right? Because of overcast, fog, things like that. And it isn't the biggest using month. So that's a great point. Thank you.
But so then we go on to the next slide, which still has the same ET bell curve on it, but this is really showing what a standard controller, or a dumb controller, if you will, that doesn't self-adjust, what we're typically seeing the watering, how it happens throughout the year. And on almost every single month, you can see that the watering is higher than what the ET factor is, which goes back to our drought monitor and everything else, that we really need to monitor and really use the water that we need instead of wasting it and actually causing harm to our plants. So in Colorado, really 3 to 4 times a year is about the average that an irrigation controller gets touched. In the spring, when the irrigation started up, they program it for the weather, what's going on right then. As the temperature and ET factors rise, they will reprogram it for the middle of the summer. Maybe they will do it, reprogram again when the temperature's starting to fall. But sometimes it's so close to the winterization, they decide just to let it go for the next couple weeks or month. And then really in, the fall, we're shutting off the irrigation controllers. Really it's kind of the same in, markets that do irrigate year round. Instead of turning on and turning off controllers, you're really making adjustments, for the seasonality. When we are shutting controllers off, a lot of people are turning them down to let them water minimally throughout the winter. And then next, so this is the ideal watering that you want to see when you're looking at the ET curve. So you really want to replenish exactly what is coming out of the root zone. You really want to be able to put it back. And again, it's not just what's being pulled out from evaporation, it's also what the plant is using. So you really have to have that ET calculation figured out to really determine what you want to put back. As you can see here, this is about perfect. There's a couple months where it's a little low, a couple months it's just a little bit higher than what the ET is, but we're really following that bell curve very closely. And this is the ideal that you want to see when you move over to a smart controller. You want to try to find something that can follow this as closely as possible.
So DJ, recently I've run into a few situations where customers have said, I talked to my contractor about a smart controller and they said, you don't need a smart controller or a weather-based irrigation controller. I can just make the adjustments, right? I can adjust to the schedule that we're looking at now. Is that really realistic? Is that possible?
Yes and no. The formula, which I have here in a couple slides, I can show you really what the formula would be to calculate this. So there is a way to actually do it, but the feasibility of someone doing it on a daily basis or even a weekly basis, going through the amount of math that you need to for every single zone on a site really puts a lot of limits on what you as a contractor are able to do.
Yeah, so it's not really a contractor issue or a contractor fault. It's just technology is allowing us to adjust daily now, and that makes all the difference.
Correct. Yeah, and once we really dive into the differences of the levels of controller, you'll really kind of see where the main differences are, and really how it helps the contractor, manage the water properly, but also ideally help save them a little bit of time as well.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
So before we really jumped in, kind of wanted to start with this slide, really showing the potential savings that you can expect off of the kind of 3 different levels of smart controllers. The smart controller, that's going to be your, entry level controller that's really going to keep you closer to the bell curve than if you, really just touched your controller 3 or 4 times a year. It's really going to help, reel in some of that overwatering. But of course it's not going to be ideal. Same thing with the smarter controller. It starts introducing some other features in the controllers that actually help reduce the water a little bit further. And then finally you get up to the ET water controller or the smartest controller, and you could really see, the potential savings really go up just due to the amount of technology that is being used and sent out to the controllers on a daily basis. So speaking of smart controllers, so the EPA actually has it listed that there are 736 weather-based irrigation controllers that have the water sense certification. Me personally, I don't know if I could name over 20, 25 controllers out there, but it really kind of, I found this very interesting because it really shows you that, every manufacturer out there has their own way of getting into smart irrigation, if you will, as a whole. But it also shows that not everybody necessarily has the same definition of smart irrigation. And so, if the definition is diluted, then, your savings potentially may not be there as well. And then as we were talking, this is the formula that a contractor or even a homeowner could use to really dive in and find out exactly what their irrigation controller needs to run. So there's a lot of different factors that go into this. I won't go into the specific math, but you need to know your daily ET factor. You need to know what your crop coefficient is. What are you watering? Are you watering turf or shrubs? You need to have some specific information in order to even do this. But then, if you look at your specific zone you're trying to figure out, you need to know the precipitation rate, the distribution uniformity, or the efficiency of that irrigation method. You really have to have a lot of really kind of dialed in information in order to get this formula to really calculate out and give you a really proper schedule. And again, in order to do it like some of the controllers on the market today do, you'd have to do this every day for every single zone on your property.
Yeah, so the math itself, I'm looking at it and there's a lot there, but it's high school math. But,
yeah, it's not difficult if you have the information.
Right, but you have to do that calculation for every zone, and this is what really makes it tough. And then you'd have to go around, you have to do the calculation, and then you'd have to go around and change the time on each individual controller every zone, and it just makes it impractical.
Very time consuming for sure.
Yeah.
So now we start to get into the good stuff. Really, looking at the different levels of the controllers out there. So the first level, what I kind of classify in my head as the smart controllers. So this is going to be a lot of your Wi-Fi based controllers. The majority of those 736 are really going to fall into this category. There's a couple of things that really separate this from the next two levels. And the first one is this uses, 50 years of historical weather data. So, really the controller itself is really kind of making a guess of what the actual weather is at your house that day. Especially, spring and fall out here in Colorado, it can be significantly different than what the historical is. So at that point, if we're 20 degrees cooler than normal or 20 degrees hotter, I'm either under or overwatering my landscape if I'm just going off of the historical weather data. The other thing with these, the smart level controllers is they are a percentage adjust controller. So they are still using the contractor or homeowner is plugging in an irrigation schedule. So, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 minutes for pop-ups, 15 minutes for rotors. And the controller is taking the historical weather data and increasing or decreasing the actual runtime on the controller. So, and it is very important. If you have the wrong program in there, it's going to be adjusting, and you still may be not putting the right amount of water down to your landscape.
Right. So I just want to clarify this. I want to be sure I'm understanding this, right? Because you're right. It doesn't sound very smart. So I'm a homeowner or somebody, and I program my controller to water for an hour. And the historical data tells me this is a cooler day. Well, let's just say it says it's a hotter day than normal. It's going to water that complete hour plus a little bit more. And I may only need 20 minutes. But if that original programming's wrong, it's not going to adjust the hour back to 30 minutes. It's just going to adjust 10%, 5%, 2%. You're never going to have a big percentage change. So if it's initially programmed incorrectly, it's going to still water the incorrect amount.
Correct. You've got that exactly right. The other part of that is if you're looking at the weather and you have it programmed for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but let's say you only need to water Monday and Friday, you have a whole another irrigation schedule out there that is going to be running as well.
Right. Okay. All right, good. Yeah, thank you. I understand that now.
So really, I mean, the benefits of these, they are going to be homeowner grade. They're generally fairly inexpensive, and they are fairly simple to use. But again, there's really no science behind them, and really they can easily be over or underwatering your landscape, potentially putting it at risk. So next we move over to what I call the smarter controllers, or the mid-level controllers. So these controllers are really they're still using the 50 years historical data. But what separates these controllers from the smart level is that they are using some live weather data as well in their ET calculations. So they're taking, generally the four main weather factors, wind, solar radiation, humidity, and temperature. And they're looking at what all of those factors were yesterday, and then they're adding that to their ET calculations from historical. So you're going to be a little bit closer to the bell curve, but again, it still has that historical. So if it's a lot hotter, you still may not be exactly right where it needs to be. These controllers generally are, again, a percentage adjust. So if your schedule's not right in there, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 and 15, it's adjusting the runtime, but is it actually the proper schedule? And, is the adjustment actually what it needs to be there?
Yeah, so really that massive calculation you showed us earlier still would have to be done even in a smarter controller, right? Just to get that baseline schedule correct. And
I would say at least once a month, probably, just to make sure that you're kind of staying in track.
Yeah, and then I think, probably what's more practical is that people are just setting them 4 times a week for 20 minutes and adjusting off that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just want to make sure it's green, and that's what a lot of people look at. And unfortunately, that's not always what's healthiest for the plant either.
Yeah, so doesn't overwatering really contribute to a lot of problems with plants?
It certainly can. You can definitely have some different diseases that can come in from overwatering. Like I said, you can stunt the root growth. If it's too wet, your turf may only have like a 1 or 2 inch root zone where, ideally on, Kentucky bluegrass cool season turf, you want 4 to 6 inch root zones out there. So there's a lot of different things that can happen from severe overwatering, especially when it's prolonged over a very long time.
Yeah, thanks, DJ.
So then finally we get into, really what I classify as the smartest controller. And there's a number of reasons why I say that it is the smartest. And it's not just because I work for ET Water. Really, it's because of the technology behind it. The controllers in this category, ET Water, we do not rely on any of the historical data. All of our weather information is calculated from live weather data yesterday and today. And really, we, at ET Water, we can make the smartest controller even smarter by looking into the future with the predictive analytics that we are introducing as well, which I'll go into a little bit more detail on that here in just a minute. But it really, we really are getting a live snapshot, so that ET curve, we're on a daily basis, we're looking at that and we're seeing exactly where it is, and we're able to replenish the water to exactly what that curve is looking like for that specific day. We're also not a percentage adjust controller. So, we are looking at this and we are building a new irrigation schedule customized for your landscape by zone on every single day. So in Colorado in the spring, we're 65 degrees every single day, and then maybe on Thursday we're going to jump up to 85. There's no in between. It's, we have a 20-degree jump every year in the spring, and contractors are out there for a week running around adjusting controllers, when if you have a smart controller, it's automatically catching that and making that change. So it's really beneficial in the fall as well. When temperatures drop, it's catching it and reducing your water right away, instead of, as we saw in that slide earlier, it goes for 2 months longer than what we actually need it to.
Yeah, so DJ, we have a question here, right? And the question is this: you're doing that massive calculation many times a day, so you must need like a supercomputer to go on the wall, right, to do all these calculations, right? And that's got to be expensive. Is that what's happening here?
No, so actually at ET Water, we do all of our calculations in the cloud. So we're the only controller that's actually doing everything in the cloud. So there is not a computer, if you will, hanging on the wall that's turning zones on and off. Our controllers, what makes them so smart is the information that we're gathering from our weather stations, and then we're sending the new program down to the controller. So the controller is really just, activating the zones off of the information it's downloading.
Yeah, I see. So everything's up in the cloud. So one server, all the information there, you're not having to duplicate many times. It keeps the cost down, I guess.
Correct. Yeah, it definitely keeps the cost down. As I can just imagine that really the smartest controllers are just going to continue to get smarter. And at some point, if you have a computer, if you will, on the wall, there's going to need to be upgrades. Just like your laptop, it might get outdated and it's not fast enough to keep up with everything that's going on. So that's one of the reasons at ET Water we decided that the cloud is the way to go. Try to limit a lot of those different roadblocks, if you will, from future.
Yeah, smart or smartest.
So I kind of touched on the predictive analytics. I really kind of wanted to go into that as well as the weather data that we use at ET Water. So really with the multiple weather sources and all the data that we're collecting on a daily basis, it doesn't matter if you live in Denver, Colorado, Topeka, Kansas, Fresno, California, really anywhere, we're able to download the actual weather for where your controller is installed. So, and with those 17 factors I mentioned earlier, we're able to get a very precise ET factor. And once you get that precise ET factor, you're able to get more water savings. You're able to really follow that curve and in some cases you might even be able to be below that ET curve that we saw earlier. So, this really is a big factor, with the weather. Also with the weather, we're able to actually see what the rainfall is and what was actually usable rainfall. In Colorado, sometimes we get 1.5 inches of rain in 30 minutes. Happened at my house about 2 months ago. But 1.5 inches in 30 minutes, how much of that is actually going to be usable? So you can calculate, oh, I got a lot of rain, so I'm going to shut it off for a week. When in all reality, your landscape wasn't actually able to soak up that much, so you may need to water in 2 or 3 days. So with all that weather, we're able to really dial in exactly what is happening out there. And with all that weather, the precise weather, we're actually able to use predictive analytics. We're able to now look forward to what the forecast is going to be. A couple examples that I use when I'm talking about this is, so it's Friday today, and Sunday I'm looking at that I might be getting 3/4 of an inch of rain. The controller at my house would then call out. We would look ahead, and we can make the determination. Okay, my turf is not going to be at permanent wilting point by the time we hit Sunday. Maybe Mother Nature is going to help me and pay for some of my water by giving it to me for free. So I'm not going to water tonight or Saturday because I'm going to wait to see if Mother Nature helps us. And if for some reason it doesn't actually happen, when it makes its communication and calls the next day, it knows exactly where it is and how much irrigation we need to replenish back into to keep the plant material healthy. We talked about drought and water restrictions. Another way to look at that is you're on 2 days a week. We can look at Monday when normally a smart controller would say I don't really need to run today, but we can look ahead and say, man, all of our landscape's going to be at permanent wilting point by the time we hit our next watering date on Thursday. So let's go ahead and apply just a little bit today, so that way our plant material is healthy by the time we can do a full run on Thursday.
Yeah, let me tell you, the other thing that I learned, especially this summer in San Diego, about this predictive analytics is when you get a real hot period, maybe a smarter controller or smart controller is looking at the past days, looking behind, and it's saying, okay, it's getting hotter every day. So it makes the assumption that you need to really pour the water on, but at some point you get a stopping point and the temperatures start to turn down. The solar radiation's turning down. Maybe you're getting some cooler breezes. And if you have the predictive analytics, then you actually start watering less. And instead of pouring it on because they're expecting it to be hotter, because that's what the history was, it's anticipating things cooling off. And I saw a big change in my watering this summer as a result of that.
Definitely, that's a great point. It's not just rain or trying to make sure your landscape's healthy. It really is looking at the weather and being the smartest thing out there right now. It really is watering to what your plants actually need. We're really not taking a guess at it. We're really looking at your landscape specifically through the science of everything and determining specifically by zone what you need.
Yeah, so we've got a person on that has a question, and they're asking, the big proponents of smart controllers for the last 10 years, but their biggest challenge is when they do have some maybe hotter weather and they start to water outside the normal watering hours. This sometimes causes alarm with their customers, and then the customers are rushing to touch the controllers and change things. So it's really two-part question. One, what do we do about this watering out of normal operating hours? And then two, how do you keep the customer's hands off the controllers?
So the first part of that, that it's really kind of difficult because that's really going to be a site specific. I mean, if you have an 8-zone controller versus a 48-zone controller, your water window constraints may be more pressed on the 48 versus the 8. Now at ET Water, the one thing we do is we allow you to set your parameters for your water window. So even if we need to actually continue to run more, your watering will stop at 10 a.m. So that way the water police aren't out trying to fine you. Your HOA is not really necessarily upset with you because you're not following the rules. We're really keeping those constraints on it. So if there are zones that can't water or don't get enough water, we're able to catalog that, and then those may run first the next day because they have the highest water need or priority. So, everything is going to get water. It may just not all happen in one specific day if your water window is too short. The second part of the question,
keeping customer hands off the controller.
Exactly, which is very important, especially as a contractor. You're under contract to keep the property looking good and healthy. Last thing you want is somebody else coming in and making changes to it and really affecting you. Basically your bottom line, if you will, whether you keep the contract or not. So at ET Water, really there's not a whole lot of functionality at the controller. So if somebody goes in and they want to change something, if they can change it, an email is going to get sent to the person managing the controller saying, hey, your percentage was adjusted. You may want to go in and take a look at this. The other thing is we don't, at ET Water, we're very careful of who we give access to the controllers. Really it's the landscape contractor that has full access. If board members, property managers want access, definitely we can accommodate that. But we have what we call a view only account, so they can get in, they can see everything on the controller, but they can't make any changes. That's left up to the actual contractor.
That's great. Thank you. That's got to be really helpful. And then I guess it would help too if you were sending regular reports to them, or isn't there even something in Jain Unity that automatically sends something?
Yeah, so in ET Water Manager, our older system, we would send email alerts if your water window was too small or you had a shorted valve out there. But with Jain Unity, we're still going to be doing that, but we're also going to be sending out a weekly email that gives you, a lot of information, what the ET factor was last week, how much water you put down, what's the ET factor looking like for next week. So, really Monday morning, you can pull it up and look at it and see, man, it's going to be, a lot hotter. My ET factor went up by ½ an inch. I should expect my water to run more often. You can kind of mentally prepare yourself, if you will, once you get all that information. And in that email, we'll also kind of tell you if there's any issues that we have located in the controller, kind of just a recap of the previous week. Yeah,
I know when I get mine on a weekly, it really gives me peace of mind just to be able to quickly look at that and see that everything's okay, or hey, I've got a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, I got to go take a look at it. So, and another thing that I personally find very beneficial in the new Jain Unity platform is what we're calling our moisture balance tab. So this is going to be really, really beneficial for water managers in multiple different ways. The first one is, you can kind of see it behind the wording back here, but it truly is a visual representation of the water that is in the root zone of your plant material. So you can pull it up every morning and you can get a really good idea of where your water sits. Same thing with, it's visual, so you can show it to your customers, property managers, board members. They want to know why their irrigation is only running, every 2 days or every 3 days in the middle of the summer, when in their minds, they think it should be running every day to keep the plant material healthy. Well, you'd be able to pull this up and say, well, if you look at the past week, we haven't hit the trigger until every 3rd day, and then you see it irrigate, and then it slowly depletes down. Or, hey, why is it watering every day? Well, we're at, half an inch of ET every single day, so you're depleting so quickly, and you can see the graph go up and down. So it's really a great way for, to kind of back up, what the controller is doing to your customers. It's also a great way to monitor the water. If you're on strict restrictions, you can really see what's going on, and you can back off the water if you need to, in order to stay within a budget. As a contractor, I remember having this happen at least once a summer. You're at an apartment complex and they call you on a Friday afternoon and say, hey, we need the irrigation off all next week because we're repaving the parking lot. So with this visual representation, you can now look at it, and with the predictive analytics, you can see what it's going to be next Friday. So you can determine, man, do I need to add an extra runtime in there to, make sure the root zone is completely full before we shut it off? or is it going to be cool enough that I can get by without watering for the week without hitting that permanent wilting point and causing damage to the landscape? The other thing that I really don't have it on here is our weather tab. So now in Unity, we actually show the customers exactly what weather we're using in our algorithm. You know, we're being very transparent, so it's very easy for a contractor to log in, look at what the weather is going to be, look at what the moisture balance is going to be, and really get a good idea of what they should expect on their property over the next week. You know, I think they're two very good tools that are really going to help water managers, you know, continue to grow with their water management.
Yeah, DJ, I have another question here. So I'm a contractor and I've got, workers in the field that still need to access the controller sometimes because they make a repair, they want to turn something on, or they just need an inspection. So I don't need them to have full access to everything, but I do want them to be able to turn things on to test, after they mow, everything's good, or make a repair. Can they do that with Jain Unity?
They can. So we have a mobile version that we call Unity Mobile. So basically that turns their smartphone basically into a remote. They can see what the program's going to be. They can make notes in there for their manager of what repairs need to be done. They can just simply use it as an on and off switch. You get the call on Friday night that they're having a barbecue tomorrow, so you need to shut the controller off. You can do it right from that mobile app as well. So really it's, you don't have the full access. You don't have access to all the features that you would on the normal desktop site. But you really have that ability to run your controllers right from the phone in your pocket.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you.
So the question I get asked a lot is, where does ET Water and Jain Unity and specifically get its water savings? So this is just a graph that I like to show people, really a good visual representation again of the potential savings you could have. If you look at the bottom little blue section, it says proper scheduling. So really that's gonna revert back to your smart level controllers that it's adjusting the scheduling more than 4 times a year. So you're actually going to be watering to, more exactly what the ET value is. It's not going to be exact again, but it's going to be fairly close. Weather-based irrigation, that's where you start introducing the live weather. You get even closer there. And then finally, the top bar is, where you have your 17 factors of weather, your predictive analytics, all the different features, shutting off for rainfall in the future. Really all those different features that Jain Unity is bringing to the table, really you can maximize your savings out of that controller for your property that you are managing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's really kind of cool to see it in this visual spot too. I like that. Thank you.
So really, I mean, that's pretty much, the presentation. I hope I was able to get enough information out there for everybody kind of on the differences, is really kind of what I wanted to really get after today. But yeah, here's all my contact info. Obviously, if anybody has any questions that they think of afterwards, any of that information that they do need, please let me know. The other thing, Richard, I know that we do want to offer all of our viewers today a free water budget of a property of their choice. We do understand that it's coming into fall. We're getting into budget season for a lot of the properties that contractors and property managers are working with, and now is definitely a good time, especially those properties that do have high water bills. We're more than happy to come in and help, determine what the water usage should be, and see if ET Water is going to be the right fit for that property, and try to do it, ideally before budget season, so you're not in another year of very high water bills.
Yeah, that's a nice offer, DJ. Thank you. And if somebody wants to take you up on that offer, they just reach out to you directly.
Yes, you can give me a call. That's my cell phone number and my email address there. Please reach out to me, and we'll definitely get you taken care of. Okay, well, listen, I want to say thank you
for all your hard work on water management, water conservation. And, it's not an easy job. I know that. And you're out there trying to change habits. And sometimes that's one of the hardest jobs to do. But changing these habits where all of us benefit from that is a great challenge, right? So thank you for your hard work and dedication on that. Thank you for your presentation today. I want to say out to everybody who joined us today, thank you for your time. I always say you haven't lived a summer until you've lived it as a contractor, right? So landscape contractor. So I know everybody's so busy right now. I really am thankful that you joined us for this time, and hope you got the value you were looking for. And please reach out to DJ for that help. Again, thanks everybody. Thank you, DJ. And gosh, we're going to be back next week on Wednesday. Corey Broad's going to be talking about how to get 60 tons of tomatoes out of an acre using proper irrigation. So should be interesting next week too. So, hey, thanks again, DJ. And remember, we're on Apple, Google, and Spotify podcasts now. A great way to get all your irrigation training in a really efficient manner when you need it. So thanks again, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard.